Thank you, Richard, for that reading. Thank you. I've always been intrigued by Jesus' family, and so little in the Bible about his brothers and sisters. And so this passage actually intrigues me a wee bit, and we'll talk about that shortly. May what I have, the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts, Lord, just be with us this morning. I've labelled the reflection, join a new kind of family. I kind of think myself as having two families, but then after this morning, I might be just thinking of a third one. You see, I've got brothers and sisters and cousins and nieces, nephews, one family. But I also think in terms of this church. I talk about my church family. You just think of the way that we greet each other as we come to church. Two families. Maybe a third one. We'll see. But firstly, just a wee bit about Mark's Gospel. It's generally believed that Mark was the first Gospel to be written between 55 and maybe 60 AD. And just about the whole of Mark's Gospel is quoted somewhere by the other Gospels. Mark, the author of Mark's Gospel, was not one of the disciples of Jesus, but appears in the book of Acts as a companion of Paul. But his accounts of the events of Jesus' life are distinct and far-flowing. He tried to lay out the events recorded in the Gospel in a good chronological order. Just a wee bit about Mark. But let's look at the Gospel reading that was read today by Richard. In today's passage from Mark's Gospel, we find Jesus still in the early stages of his ministry. He is swamped by the crowds. So much so that the disciples worry that he's going to be crushed. It's actually pandemonium. People bring their sick and oppressed to Jesus. There is so much going on, there's no chance for him even to grab a bite to eat. Many people are healed, and evil spirits flee under Jesus' authority. Now, the religious leaders have come down from Jerusalem to watch what's going on. In front of the crowds, they accuse Jesus of being in league with the devil. This man is under the power of Beelzebul, the ruler of demons, they say. He is even forcing out demons with the help of Beelzebul. Why did they say this? Simply because he was performing wonders. And the obvious alternative to demonic involvement was all this was happening by the power and will of God. This alternative was unpalatable to Jesus' opponents. Jesus was not Jesus was not the sort of prophet that they were seeking or expecting. Certainly not the Messiah that they really wanted. So they said that what he was doing was all the work of the devil. But Jesus blasted holes through their logic. How can Satan force himself out? A nation whose people fight each other won't last very long. And a family that fights won't last long either. So if Satan fights against himself, then that will be the end of him. And passing, Jesus' argument touches on some timeless issues. Nothing unravels the fabric of society as divisions. And Jesus talks of a nation divided. Yeah, a nation is divided. So much grief and so much anguish, so much brutality and violence are caused in our world today by nations that are divided. There are presently as many as maybe 24 civil or interstate wars that are raging. They are fueled much by racial, ethnic, or religious animosities as by ideological fervour. Countries like Somalia, Syria, Yemen, Uganda, Afghanistan, Congo are being torn apart by fractions from within. From civil conflicts we've heard horrific reports of the evils of ethnic cleansing, genocide, and we've heard of child soldiers. Most of the victims of these civil conflicts are civilians. This is a disturbing feature that distinguishes modern warfare. See, during World War I, civilians made up fewer than 5% of all casualties. Today, 75% or more of those killed or wounded in wars are non-combatants. There is nothing new about nations divided. 2 years before he became President of the United States of America, and 3 years before the Civil War broke out in America, Abraham Lincoln could see the dangerous threat that a North-South division over the issue of slavery posed to his nation. His speech addressing this issue was one of his most famous. The best-known section of the speech picks up today's message from Mark's Gospel. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently, half slave or half free, said Abraham Lincoln. I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the house to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one or all the other. Now Lincoln's speech, grand and perceptive though it was, didn't prevent a civil war in which more than 620,000 people died at the hands of their fellow citizens. How terrible is a nation divided. But Jesus also talks about a family divided. And he does so in the context of tension within his own family. It is tension caused by Jesus. I don't know, but have you ever thought about it this way? Jesus was quite a worry to his family. The prophecy of Simeon, when Jesus was just a baby, declared that this was going to be the case. Mary will suffer as though stabbed by a dagger, said Simeon. I think Luke 35 says that. That prophecy was certainly fulfilled at the cross, but it was started long before that even. Without telling his parents, remember that Jesus stayed back? talking with the teachers in the temple. His parents spent 3 days looking for him when he was 12 years old. We can only imagine their worry. In today's reading, we find Jesus in the centre of an out-of-control press of people. Not only that, but he is arguing with religious leaders from Jerusalem. His family knows that these leaders are people that you don't want to pick a fight with. They have the power to hurt you. The family think that Jesus has lost control. He's gone too far. I think he might be going crazy. According to John's Gospel, at this stage in his ministry, Jesus' family did not believe in him. So they're actually on a mission to rescue him. But Jesus does not want to be rescued. Well, we know about family tensions, don't we? Many New Zealanders find it hard to maintain any commitment to each other in the face of family tensions. 40% of our young men and women opt for de facto relationships. And of the marriages that do take place, more than a third are dissolved before they reach a silver anniversary. Family tensions are only increased by the problems we have with our kids. I read somewhere that 40% of our 13 to 16-year-olds are binge drinkers or experimenting with drugs. And if that's not a worry enough, 31% of our boys appear in court before their 25th birthday. So is there any good news in any of this? Well, yes. Because in a roundabout way, Jesus issues an invitation to join a new kind of family. Not wanting to enter into the chaos inside the house, Jesus' family remains standing outside and they send a messenger into him. Jesus, your mother and your brothers and your sisters are outside. They want to see you. He looked at the people sitting around him and said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. Anyone who obeys God is my brother or sister or mother." Now, this is not to be understood as an attack or a slight on his family, but rather an affirmation of the strong sense of belonging among true disciples of Christ. See, Jesus is throwing the door wide open. The way he breaks down barriers and puts the welcome mat out to anyone is unsettling. Surely nobody welcomes sinners or outcasts or riffraff and treats them like family, but Jesus does. You see, his closest friends were fishermen, tax collectors, and rebels. No wonder his own family must wonder about whether he's going crazy. Jesus is saying something here about the grace of God. the grace by which everyone can find acceptance and a home. Each one of us is welcome to be part of his family. And in extending this invitation, Jesus is also saying something about the importance of being united under a common purpose. Anyone who obeys God is my brother or sister or mother. It is the pressing desire to be obedient to God that binds his family together. Oh yeah, sometimes the church isn't quite like that, you might be thinking. And you're right, in some cases it isn't. The church, the local group of disciples of Jesus that we meet together with, can be divided and selfish and sinful. But not here at St Andrews, are we? No. And the pettiness that divides Christians apart on the basis of personalities or theories deserves to be shamed by Jesus' display of unmerited favour and acceptance. Who is my mother? Who is my brother? Anyone who obeys God is my brother or sister or mother. So just maybe, I have a third family. Amen. Just think that for a few moments.